Good evening, everyone. Thank you for waiting. We'll just give another minute for people who may be coming in. Okay, Ben, should I go ahead?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the City of Pacifica scoping meeting for the environmental impact report being prepared for the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project. My name is Kavita Kumar, and I'm the interim Community Development Director for the City of Pacifica. I'm joined here with members of staff from the City of Pacifica and the city's consultant team who have been contracted to perform the environmental review of this project. We are glad to have you all with us this evening. And with that, I'll hand it over to John Mullins, our newly appointed interim Public Works Director. John?
Good evening, everybody. Again, thank you for the introduction. My name is John Mullins. I'm the new interim Public Works Director for the City of Pacifica. Thank you.
I'll pass it on to Roland.
Hi, everyone. This is Roland Yip. I'm Deputy Director of Public Works / City Engineer, and I'm also the project manager for this project.
And that's our team from the city. And I'll pass it on to Ben, who will be facilitating this going forward. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, great. And I think if we can have consultant staff introduce themselves, just so folks in the meeting know who we are. And maybe Eli, we can start with you, and then we'll go to Aaron and then Crimson West.
Good evening. It's nice to be here with you all this evening. My name is Eli Davidian. I'm a principal environmental planner with Environmental Science Associates, or ESA, and we are supporting the city with preparation of the environmental document. Aaron?
Thanks, Eli. Good evening, Aaron Holloway. I'm a senior coastal engineer with GHD, and I'm managing the consulting team and supporting the city on this project.
Okay, I think I can go. Hi, my name is Ben Gettleman. I'm part of the facilitation team for this evening's meetings, and we're also supporting engagement around this project. Marlis and Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marlis, and I'm supporting Ben at Crimson West. And if you have any questions or technical difficulties, please reach out to us in the chat.
I'm Jennifer. I'm also supporting from the Crimson West team. And yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit of orientation, walk through our agenda, then we'll get into the content for today. In terms of just making sure you all can navigate Zoom, a couple of things we wanted to point out. We are asking folks to mute themselves while we're going through the presentation, so you can do that with the audio that's on the left. We do have a chat function, which will just go to our facilitation team. Really, that's for if you're having technical issues, if you can't hear or something isn't working, please use that chat function and we'll do our best to help you out. When we get to the public comment, you'll use the reactions feature to raise your hand. If you're interested in having closed captions, that's a feature that you can turn on, and so you click on that button, and then finally, whenever you would like to leave, you can hit that leave button. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just a couple suggested meeting guidelines, just to make sure that we all, folks have the opportunity to participate and that we're able to share information. And we, recognize there are different views and sort of thoughts on this project, and we just, request that we all be respectful of those differences. Again, please do remain muted until it's your turn to speak. There might be some technical difficulties. We're doing our best to keep it as smooth as we can, but just ask for your patience and please do let us know in the chat. We'll do our best to fix that as quickly as we can. And then again, we will have public comment and ask you to hold those comments until we get to that section of the meeting. Let's go to the next slide. So the agenda for today, so this is a public scoping meeting, and some of you may have participated in scoping meetings in the past. They do tend to have a pretty uniform format. And so a few things we're going to want to make sure we do today is introduce the environmental review process under CEQA and just put in context of where this project is in environmental review. We want to, a number of you have participated in different meetings of this project, but we do want to provide an overview of the project, what's going to be evaluated in the environmental impact report, talk a bit about that process and schedule. And then finally, and importantly, we want to provide the opportunity for the public to provide oral comments concerning the scope of the EIR. And so Eli and others are going to provide a little bit more context in terms of what is most helpful in a scoping meeting context. One thing you'll note is that there isn't a bullet here for questions and answers. So for the scoping meeting today, it's really focused on making sure that you all understand the project, the environmental impact report process, and that we get your comments. But we're not going to be doing questions and answers during this scoping meeting. So if when we get to public comment and you ask a question, we will write that question down, but the team's not going to answer it in this meeting. And so we'll look for other opportunities outside of the scoping meeting to have more of a back and forth, but really it's about, we really want to make sure we get your comments as it relates to scoping out this environmental process. So want to make sure that's crystal clear. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So I think I'll hand it over to Eli to talk about CEQA.
Thanks, Ben. Hello again, everybody. As Ben said, I'll kick us off with a quick introduction to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA is a state law that requires state and local agencies to consider and disclose the effects of their actions on the environment. So CEQA statute is codified in the Public Resources Code, and the implementing regulations, often referred to as the CEQA guidelines, are found in the California Code of Regulations. These regulations will guide the CEQA document process for the project. And I'll just note here that the Planning Division of the Community Development Department is the lead agency for CEQA, meaning that it will be directing the preparation of the environmental document. Next slide. So the main objective of CEQA is to help maintain the quality of the environment. So let's look at some of the key functions of CEQA and how it accomplishes this. First, by bringing the public into the process. You all have local insights and expertise that the city or the city's consulting team may not have. And so your engagement and your input is a really important part of the environmental review process. Second, by providing decision makers with information about the project's potential environmental effects so that they can be weighed among other considerations such as cost when making the decision about whether to approve. And finally, considering ways to avoid or minimize those potential environmental effects. We'll talk more about that in the slides to come. Next slide. So CEQA charges the lead agency with determining the appropriate type of environmental document for a project. For example, a project that has negligible or no effect on the environment might qualify for an exemption. A project with a moderate adverse impact might be addressed in an initial study leading to a mitigated negative declaration. And projects with the potential for significant impacts or with a high level of public interest are often reviewed in an environmental impact report, or EIR. The city has determined that an EIR is the appropriate type of document for the Beach Boulevard project. And so that's the focus of the environmental review and our discussion tonight. So what is in an EIR? As we talked about, the EIR is an informational document. So it's meant to describe the project's potential effects. It'll contain a detailed project description in text and figures to describe the potential environmental effects across a wide range of topics, which we'll look at in a second. The document will identify feasible mitigation measures to reduce or avoid impacts that are identified as significant. And it will consider a reasonable range of alternatives to the project design that might reduce or avoid significant environmental impacts. The next slide. And so here's a quick look at the list of topics that are normally addressed in an EIR. These are the topics that the state recommends be reviewed, and they're outlined in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. The regulations direct that an EIR should focus on those topics for which the project may cause a significant environmental effect. Other topics can be addressed at a lesser level of detail. And after a preliminary review, it looks like the project might have adverse effects on the topics that are shown in bold font here. So the EIR is expected to address these topics in detail. For those that are not shown in bold, the topic's either not relevant to the project setting, so for example, agriculture or forestry, or it's not expected to be adversely affected. So for example, exacerbating wildfire risk. So these non-bold topics are expected to be addressed at a lesser level of detail than those in bold, but will still be addressed in the EIR. Next slide. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Roland to introduce the proposed project. Roland?
Thank you, Eli. Good evening, everyone, again. And so I would like to go over the overview for the project. Next slide, please. These are our project objectives, and this has been shared in previous community meetings. And there's 4 here, starting with is to create a multi-benefit solution to protect public infrastructure, recreational activities, and the community at large from further coastal erosion impacts, ensure public health and safety in the general vicinity of Beach Boulevard, including the West Sharp Park neighborhood, build climate resilience into one of the most vulnerable segments of the city's shoreline, and improve public access to and use of the Beach Boulevard Promenade, Pacifica Municipal Fishing Pier, and the restored beach. Next slide, please. These are the project extents, and it is located in northern Pacifica on the western edge of the historic West Sharp Park neighborhood. The extents range from the north of Paloma Avenue to south of Clarendon Road, including the entire seawall, and from Beach Boulevard to offshore, approximately 400 feet. There are 3 segments to the wall. There's the north wall, which is in the worst condition and has had several failures in the past couple of years. There's the pier wall system located in the middle at the Pacifica Municipal Fishing Pier. And you can see that when you're over by the pier, you can see it by the exposed sheet piles. And then we have the south wall. It's in better condition than the north wall, but this area experiences more soil getting washed up over the wall. And it also has a south gap where there is no wall near Elder Lane. Next slide, please. For the project. So flood wave overtopping, as shown in this photo on San Jose Avenue, there's severe overtopping that occurs here, and also along other parts of the wall, including the south wall. There's continual maintenance that's needed near the south wall, where sand and overtopping causes us to, have our field services crew out there during these storm events, and also have a lot of cleanup after the storms. There's erosion and undermining of the north wall. There has been 3 breaches since 2022, and just to show the extent of how more frequent these has been happening. Before 2022, 8 years prior to 22, there has been 3 breaches since then, and then we've had 3 breaches in the past 2 winters. Next slide, please. Studies and technical studies and alternatives that has been studied. We have the existing conditions report, multi-hazard risk assessment, alternatives analysis report, identification of preferred concept design. And so all of these documents have been shared and it's on the project's website for the city. And as you can see in the bottom right of this slide, the system that has been chosen from our previous phases is this hybrid coastal protection system. And you can see all the components in this slide here. I'll explain it a little bit more in the next slide, please. So here are some of the project elements. Includes the first 3 for the wall system. It's going to be a new wall, rock scour apron, and beach nourishment and From our studies and our previous phases, we found that it was the most cost effective to have three components used together in our project. In addition to these three components, there's also drainage improvements and public access and recreational amenities on the project. So with that, I'll pass it back to Eli to discuss some of the project area and also more of the wall cross sections.
Great, thank you, Roland. So again, this slide shows the general project limits that Roland outlined, and I'll just recap. It's extending north of Paloma Avenue in the north to south of Clarendon Road, also known as the Gap in the south, all the way to the berm and offshore about 400 feet. Next slide. So I'm going to ask Meryl to use the cursor to kind of call out some of these as I go through, but I'm going to describe some of the key elements of the project that are shown in this plan. So just note as we go along, we've rotated the plan view to the right. So north is to the right here. So first, the city would replace the existing seawall, which is shown in the black dotted line along the shore there, with a new wall whose alignment is shown in red. The majority of the new wall would be composed of a 30-inch diameter steel pipe piles filled with reinforced concrete. And this would mainly follow the alignment of the existing wall, but would be shifted landward at the south end, where a smaller concrete wall would be constructed. And so you can see that deviation in the south from the red and the black dotted line. So most of the new seawall would be fronted on the ocean side by a rock scour apron. So it would be about 50 feet wide, and that's what's shown here in teal along most of the shore, just seaward of the red line. So the purpose of that apron would be to protect the new seawall from being undermined by erosion from waves and tides and currents. The apron would be composed mainly of large rock that already exists along the shoreline, and that the remainder of that existing rock that's not used in apron construction would be hauled offsite. As part of the project, the city would place a large amount of sand along the shore on top of and seaward of the rock scour apron. This is sometimes referred to as beach nourishment. And the approximate extent of the sand placement area is shown in the black hatching. The gradual slope down to the existing seafloor is represented by the triangles that point out towards the ocean. So that's a gentle slope that comes off the berm. The purpose of the nourishment event would be twofold. One would be to assess the potential coastal access, recreation, and ecosystem benefits of sand placement. And the other would be to evaluate the feasibility of a longer-term nourishment program that might have repeat events. The city would also construct several drainage improvements, including new catch basins along Beach Boulevard. And these are represented by the blue lines along the shore. The purpose of these features would be to improve drainage and reduce the amount of flooding from large storms like the one that Roland showed in the image in his slides, from large storms and wave overtopping of the seawall. And finally, the city would improve public access and recreational opportunities along Beach Boulevard through construction of a variety of public amenities. And these might include new plazas, public art, new seating and landscaping, a new play structure, beach access, and other features. The specific types and locations of these elements are still being developed. So they're not available to show here, but they'll generally be located along the promenade, and they'll be detailed and fully evaluated in the EIR. So now I want to call your attention to the labels on this figure here, that down at the bottom, Fig 2A, Fig 2B, and Fig 2C. These are cross sections or side profile views along the shore looking north of what the project might look like when it's constructed. So these are called typical sections. We have a few of these diagrams in the next couple of slides. So let's start with figure 2A. Next slide, please. Okay. So this first slide shows a typical cross-section of what the wall north of the pier might look like. So in this image, you can see the sheet pile wall, the rock scour apron in front of it, the promenade and beach boulevard behind the wall, and a utility line is shown as an example of how the wall serves to protect existing utilities. So let's take a look at the next one. So this is a typical cross-section of the wall at the pier. So as you can see here, there's a steel pipe pile that's constructed in front of the existing sheet pile wall. So that's the kind of failing sheet pile wall and the concrete from past repairs behind it. Note that there is no rock scour apron at this location. And then the next slide shows a typical section of the wall south of the pier. And you'll see here that this is set back quite a bit from the shore. It's composed of concrete rather than a steel pipe pile. And there's sand and cobble berm in front of the wall rather than the rock scour apron. So let's now go to the next slide, please. So I will turn briefly to the CEQA process ahead. This slide shows a diagram of the typical EIR process. So we'll start on the top left with the green icons. We've initiated the CEQA process through publication of the NOP, the Notice of Preparation, which the city published on July 30th. The NOP announces the city's intent to prepare an EIR. It includes a brief project description and the figures that we just reviewed. And it explains how to provide comments on the scope of the environmental document. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, I encourage you to do so. It's available on the city's website. The NOP review and comment period runs 30 days, so until August 30th. And after that time, the city will review the comments received and prepare the draft EIR. So now we're moving into the blue icons. Once the draft EIR is prepared, the city will publish a notice of availability, or an NOA, and that will announce the availability of the draft EIR. It will provide a brief description of the project and its potential effects, and provide details on where to access the document, the draft EIR, and how to provide comments. The draft EIR public review period is typically 45 days. And after the close of the draft EIR review period, the city will prepare a final EIR, which is shown in the orange icons. The final EIR will include responses to comments on the adequacy of the environmental document, including any revisions to the project or the environmental analysis. And once the final EIR is prepared, the city will hold a public hearing to decide whether to certify the final EIR and whether to approve the project. So let's go to the next slide. So this slide provides a rough timeline of the environmental review process, beginning with the publication of the NOP and concluding with completion of the final EIR. So as you can see, the process typically takes about, process typically takes about 2 years, but it can be longer or shorter depending on the complexity of the project and the amount of public interest and engagement. So next slide. So I'll close with a few tips for providing effective scoping comments. As we discussed, the role of CEQA really is to evaluate the effects of a selected project design rather than to continue the design process at this stage. It's not uncommon for folks to express preferences during the comment period. Their likes or dislikes about the project generally, or to make recommendations for project changes. That's totally fine, and folks are certainly welcome to do that here. However, the types of comments that would be most effective in shaping the EIR are listed here. So, for example, are there specific resource topics that we should be looking at? Are there particular mitigation measures that should be considered to address potential environmental impacts? Are there alternatives to project elements that you want the city to consider? So these are the types of things that can really drive the preparation of the EIR and the analysis. Next slide, please. And so that concludes the CEQA overview. Just say thanks for listening, and I'll hand it back to Ben to take us into the comment period.
Thanks, Eli. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I'm just gonna provide a little bit of the guidance on public comment, and Eli touched on a bit of this. So as a reminder, the comment period goes through August 30th, so about a week. And so there's kind of two main ways you can provide comment. One is during this meeting today, and then otherwise you can submit comments in writing to Stephanie, and her information is available there. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so again, if you're interested in providing a comment, please go to the reactions button below, react button below, raise your hand. We'll take a cue, and we'll just go in the order that we see the hands come up. We do have this little fun timer at the bottom. You have up to 3 minutes if you like that much time. If not, you don't have to use up the whole time. But really, we're just going through public comments. And we'll, as soon as each person concludes, we'll go to the next person. So does anyone, I'm not seeing any hands yet. Okay, I'm seeing Terry. Terry, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. I live on Carmel Avenue, so I would be in the North Beach or North Wall section. The big question in our household is, what kind of interference can we expect from the Coastal Commission? And are we plowing ahead with these great plans despite the negative doomsday Coastal Commission message that they're not going to let any of this happen? Basically, are we being really optimistic, or are we pretty sure that we've got the state on our side to help us build these things?
Okay, thank you, Terry. Let's go to Sam Casillas. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, hi. I have a few different questions. First of all, well, last time we had this discussion at the last minute when I was speaking, somebody mentioned something about triggers for what type of managed retreat or something else would have to occur. So what are those triggers to understand what will be the triggers to pull back? Second question is, I just want to clarify, because all everybody talks is about the housing. So I want to make sure the reason that we're building this seawall is to protect city infrastructure. And that's the primary reason for the pump. So also, when will we be studying moving the pump to a different location, since, climate change is real? And then finally, I want to understand the full data for the supposed Clarendon Gap save, because my understanding is if you trap all stormwater behind that wall, what you're going to do is dam the water on the backside where you actually needed to drain. So what full studies have been done, not just the seawall itself, or, well, I wouldn't be overtopping, but at the Clarendon Gap, what would that be? And then what's the true cost of this, and how are we going to bear the cost? And that I'm also talking about not just cost for the initial putting up the wall, but for maintenance afterwards, because as we see, it's the wall not actually failing, it's what everything is behind that's failing. So you get the big pits and the sinkholes. And then also my understanding is there would have to be sand nourishment. So that sand nourishment, because you're going to destroy the beach, and then what is the plan for sand nourishment, because that would have to be done in perpetuity, and how would that affect the Fairmont, the Fairview estate houses, because you're actually going to destroy the beach down there. So they have a natural built-in nature-based solution there already. So if you take the beach away, you're eliminating one source, the first wall of defense against sea level rise. And to the north, you'd be sending the wave force up there as well, and devastating all the reverberants that those people have up there. So is there a compensation plan for those people that live, I don't know if it's Shoreview or Shoreline, whatever street that is. That's it for right now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Okay, Remy, go ahead. Remy Tan.
Hi, Ramy Tan. I'm a longtime resident of Pacifica, 27 years here on the north end of town. Interesting presentation just now. I've noticed the seawall is now a steel wall, and looking at how badly corroded the existing steel wall under the kiosk is at the foot of the pier, I'm wondering what is the projected lifespan on this wall. It's, I doubt you're going to get probably 10, 15 years considering how corrosive seawater is. So I'm just wondering if you guys have done study of that and, what's driven that change from, I think it used to be concrete before on the last iteration. And secondly, I noticed there's a lot more sand on the left side of the beach or the south side of the pier than the north side. And I'm wondering why that's not equal. Does it have to do with topography or whatnot? And looking at the section that was shown on the north side, it doesn't look like the sand shows up anywhere. And there was a picture that showed the sand was supposed to be well over the rock revetment that buttresses the base of the wall. So I think there's some inconsistencies there. And I heard what Sam said about cost. This sounds like a huge cost item, and there needs to be a cost allocation between, how much is the sewer worth we're protecting versus how much the properties, in back of the seawall we're protecting, and then have some kind of equitable share of the cost between the city and the private property owners. Because it's not fair that for the rest of the city that we need to, burden ourselves to provide, protection of private property that's on that side. But, we do need to protect the sewer because that, affects everybody in this city, at least, in the north half of the city. So, I get that. And then I also concur with Sam that, we need to see how it affects the private seawalls to the north and then the public berm to the south. If there's any negative wave effects that we need to watch out for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ramy. I'm not seeing any other hands currently. Let's maybe give it a few more minutes to see if seeing a thumbs up, but not a hand. Cheryl, is that thumbs up wanting to talk? That's just thumbs up. Okay. Oh, okay, Cheryl. Go ahead.
I have a question about timing. When do you hope to start and how long should this project last?
Okay, thank you. And just as a reminder, Cheryl, I'm not sure if you caught the beginning of the meeting. We're not answering questions during the meeting today, but we'll certainly get your question and it'll be in the public comments. Any other comments from folks? Sam, I see you've got your hand up again. Did you want to provide another comment?
Yeah, sorry, just the last thing. I want, if you guys could put out what the process will be. So I'm assuming this will have to first go through the planning commission and then go to the city council after that for approval, and then go to the Coles Commission. So is there an actual timeline for it? And then what will the appeal process for this be as well? Thanks. I just forgot that one, but.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Okay. Remy, I see your hand again. Go ahead.
Quickly, I know the pier is in really horrible shape right now. How does this project coordinate with any, the future repairs on that pier? Is this gonna, you know, depending on the design of the repairs, how does that, is that going to be accounted for in this project? And then funding wise, are they going to go for different funding sources or, one, state or federal grant for this thing? So just out of curiosity, how that's going to get all affected.
Great, thank you, Remy. Okay, well, what I think what we can do is go to we only have one more slide and it's a bit of a recap slide. So we can go to that slide. We're not closing out public comments, but just in terms of next steps, the main next step is a reminder that the public comment period closes August 30th. So either today or in writing by August 30th, please do send in your comments or your scoping comments if you'd like to do that. Okay. I think that, let's see. Okay. So and that's pretty much it in terms of the content we want to share out. I think our team is going to stay on just to see if anyone else comes on until probably about 7 o'clock. So I'd say you all are welcome to stay on and wait with us if you like, or if you have a comment you'd like to provide, we will stay on and listen to any comments that come up. But otherwise, that's the agenda that we plan to get through today. And this presentation it was recorded. It'll be posted on the project website, so you all are able to be able to access that soon. But otherwise, just want to say thank you for joining tonight. And yeah, we'll certainly more to come in terms of information about the environmental review process. Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour. Doesn't look like anyone has since come on, and so we're going to close out the scoping meeting. I want to just say thank you all again for joining and providing your input. There will certainly be future opportunities to learn more about the project and to do a little bit more back and forth discussion, but this has been certainly productive. And again, we appreciate your time. So have a good night, and we'll see you next time.